Hello, I'm Chef Brian O'Connor and this is Shamrock Solutions. Today I'm going to be talking about things that are very dear to all of us, and that is how much does it cost to put an item on a plate and sell it to our customers. And today I have a couple examples here. I have a beef tenderloin and a New York strip that I'm going to cut up, and I'm going to go over some costing and yielding, and you'll get a good idea of what it's going to cost to put that item on a customer's plate. What I have here is a choice 5-up tenderloin, typically called a PSMO, P-S-M-O, and what that means is peeled side muscle on. And this is that long side muscle that goes along the beef tenderloin. I'm going to cut all this off while we're talking. And I'll save everything in here so we can see what actually falls off this item as we're cutting it up. That's very important when your cooks are cleaning these, that they try to be as careful as possible, because this is a very expensive item. And it's probably important as an operator if you could, every time you do clean a tenderloin, you do your starting weight and you do your ending weight. But really at the end of the day, and this is kind of what I want to talk about more than anything else, at the end of the day, what you have to realize is this tenderloin, this particular tenderloin, no matter how many pieces you cut it up into, it costs you almost $47 just for this item. So depending on how many steaks we're going to get out of there is really what's going to dictate what the steak price is going to be. So if your cooks are getting 4 or 5 out of here, you're in trouble. This is our starting piece, okay? I'm going to cut 8-ounce steaks out of this. This is what's falling off. Of course, we might not get a steak out of here or whatever, but we're going to see. We're going to cut this up. So we got my handy scale. I'm going to trim a little bit off of this just to make sure that it's a little bit flat. And this is actually 7.8 ounces, so a little bit shy. So if you're cutting your own steaks and you're talking to somebody and I use a center cut steak, in reality you're probably not using a center cut steak. You're cutting that whole tenderloin from end to end. So really what you want to get from us as for a price standpoint is what would it cost for us to cut this steak from end to end for you. Next I have a choice 0x1 New York strip. And this is actually a sterling silver product. I'm not going to trim this up a whole lot, but I am going to take that back strap off of there. And that's a lot of sinew that goes through there, and that's a really tough piece of meat. And I'll put that in there. I'll see if I can get those steaks cut a little bit more accurate this time. But that's something too. Anyone that cuts meat, our meat plant, those guys are doing it all day long, and they go through it. And they're cutting, and once you start cutting a few, you really get really accurate. But like me, I just cut it. I had to guess what it was. 8 ounce I put on the scales, a little bit light, next one a little bit heavy. Your cooks and chefs are going to go through the same thing that I went through. So I'm going to cut these again. I'm going to cut about a 12 ounce steak, and I'm going to stop right when we get to the vein end, and I'm going to show you those steaks that come off that vein end. And right here, this next steak, you're going to see that that muscle intrude on it. And that's probably the last steak you're going to get. Now this would be a center cut New York steak right here that we got. So that would be the center cut, and then this piece here, you're starting to get this muscle that's coming in here. So these next steaks you're going to cut off are going to be, it's going to get a little bit bigger down here. It's going to be very tough. So this next piece, you're really not going to get a nice steak out of that, so I'm going to leave that as a fall-off item. So you could probably use that for brochette meat or something else, but this is what you're going to get with the vein end. So 1, 2, you got 7, 9 steaks out of this New York strip, including the vein ends. So what I had the meat plant do was cut me up a New York strip and a beef tenderloin exactly how I cut them up. You can see that they didn't add the tail like I did, so I'm not going to add that in my final numbers. But keep in mind, this beef tenderloin, when everything was said and done, you got 5 steaks. It cost $46.80 for those 5 steaks, and that worked out to be about $7.95 per steak. If the meat plant cut it for you, and they did the same end to end, so you got these pieces, which are very similar, That worked out to be about $8.47 a steak, so not that much of a difference. I included labor dollars in all of these items and added that into my price as well, which is something you would have to do also. The New York strip, the same thing. They put in the vein steaks like I did as well, so that's an end-to-end. You have all the trim from all the different cuts of meat that we cut up today, so that's in there as well. And that worked out to be about $7.60 per steak for me, the ones that I cut, including the vein steaks. And for the meat plan was about $8.35 per steak, and that's about 75 cents differential. So good thing about the meat plant, you get a very consistent, individually cryovac, USDA inspected product, so you know the quality is going to be there for you. Don't have to worry about your cooks being in a rush, cutting up a steak, or you get in a hurry and you cut it up and you maybe cut it too big or too small. Your guest gets an unhappy experience. But just something for you to consider. I think it's important to take into consideration the total cost of what it's going to cost you. What it's going to cost you as opposed to just looking at the price that it's coming into your back door for. Because at the end of the day, all that really matters is how much does this steak cost to put on my customers' plates. For Shamrock Solutions, I'm Chef Brian O'Connor.